focused, I just forgot I never put on the audio. I apologize for the online viewers. I totally forgot. It just kind of clicked when now I feel bad. Okay. Unfortunately, for the first, apparently, 5 minutes of me speaking, I forgot to turn the audio on. So instead of kind of reverting back, I'm just going to quickly mention that this first foundation of body, there's 10 exercises, and we will be covering the first 3, maybe 4 exercises today. And in the mindfulness of body, we're going to be focusing on exercises on the breath, the positions of the body, the actions of the body, the parts of the body, the 4 elements of which the body is composed, and the solution of the body, or the decomposition of the body. So now that we're on the first exercise of conscious breathing, we just mentioned that being fully aware and fully conscious of that in and out breath, right? And it's not a matter of focusing entirely on it's not a matter of focusing entirely on the breath for the full session, just on that one breath. That's all you need to be focused on, is that one in and out breath. Success. Do it again. In and out breath. No distractions, no thoughts arising. Fully aware in the in and out breath. Success. Next one, right? And so you have these little mini successes that can end up being a whole success in the entire session of your meditation, right? And so if you just focus on that and that little micro success, right? It's just one in and out breath. It sounds like it's not a big deal. But when you try to do that for every breath, you'll notice it gets harder and harder, right? Or can be harder and harder to keep up that full awareness of the breath. And so don't be discouraged if you're breathing in, breathing out, success, in, out, thought arises, oh no, not success, that's fine, move on, next, right? And so it's not a matter about, okay, I can sit for 5, 10, 15 minutes with full focus on the breath. If you can do that, congratulations, right? But if not, worry about the first in and out breath, success, next one, in and out, success, next one, in and out, success, right? And so use those little micro successes as the encouragement that you need to continue on, right? Because oftentimes people who are newer to Buddhism or to meditation have this misconception that the mind needs to be totally clear, totally free of thoughts and distractions. I need to sit in a perfect lotus position. I need to be upright. I need to be stone. I need to be stone, right? A statue-like. And that's not the case, right? Again, if that happens to be your success at the end of your practice, congratulations. You did what you wanted to do. That's not really the point, right? And because oftentimes people think of that kind of bigger picture of my whole session needs to be fully aware and blissful and clear of thoughts, right? People think in that grand gesture way too often, and that's not a good encouragement, right? Because if you sit down and try to do that as a meditation practice and you don't succeed, then you're going to end up being pissed off at yourself at the end of the session. Like, I couldn't do it. It didn't work, right? So that causes a lot of discouragement to yourself, a lot of negative thinking to yourself, when that's not really the point of meditation. What is the point of meditation, or concentration specifically? Then notice when thoughts arise. That's all you have to do. It's just as long as you know a thought arose, and you caught it without grabbing it and pulling it in and playing with it and entertaining it, you've done exactly what you need to do. Thought arises, thought, let it go. One word label. Whatever comes first, label it, and it'll be like, you caught me. It'll run away. Right? So you go back to breathing, in, out, success, in, oh, what's for lunch? Food, label, go away, out. In, success, out, in, success, out, success, in. Is it still raining outside? Fail. It's raining. Or weather, label it, out breath, let it go, move on, right? So focus on these little micro successes, right? It's not at this point of time, depending on your level of practice, it's not important to worry about having the entire session be a success or a failure. That's not the point. You're not going to be, it's going to be very difficult to become encouraged enough to continue on if that's the mindset we're having. Okay, I've gone way over this exercise. But as we start to focus and stay focused with our breathing for the entire length of the breath, right? As we breathe in, our minds are one with our breath, and we become one with the body. And that's what we mean by mindfulness of the body in the body. The second exercise is following the breath. So unlike the first exercise, when we're just being aware that we're breathing in and out, right? Just the awareness of the breath itself. That's the first exercise. The second exercise is actually following the breath, right? And so as you breathe in, you know that you're breathing in and you're breathing in air into your body, right? So now we follow the breathing very closely and become one with that breathing for the entire length of the breath, right? Likewise, in the very first exercise, where we just need to focus on the in breath and out breath, that little second, that's the success. Now we just need to go a little bit further. Instead of just knowing that we're breathing in and breathing out, now we have to be aware that we're breathing in, the air is going into our body, awareness, going out of the body, awareness, right? So go in and out all the way, in all the way, out all the way, success. In all the way, out all the way, success, right? So it's just it's a grander or a larger scale of focus than the first exercise. And so now that the mind is following the breath, the mind is the breath and only the breath. So now the focus starts to really narrow, right? Your mind and breathing starts to become one. And then in the process of this practice, our breathing becomes more regular, more harmonious, more peaceful and calm. And that way, then our minds become also more regular, more peaceful, more harmonious and calm. And this will naturally bring out feelings of joy and peace and ease in the body. And we can, I hope that in your meditation practice, that you can sense that, right? That if you're able to relax the body, relax the mind, then the breathing starts to relax as well. Or if the breathing is relaxed, then your mind will naturally be relaxed as well as your body. The third exercise, oneness of the body and mind. And this is where we bring body and mind into harmony, right? So it starts to harmonize now. And the element used to do this is, surprise, surprise, the breath, right? And so in our meditation practice, the distinction between body and mind dissolves, right? And now there's oneness of body and mind. And so the objective or the object of mindfulness now is no longer simply just the breath, but the whole body itself, as it's unified with the whole body itself as it's unified with the breath. And so now we have to bring our breathing now we use our breathing to bring body and mind together as one. So the object of concentration is simultaneously the mind, body, and breath, right? This is oneness of mind and body. Just think of your ordinary lives, right? Sometimes you're home, you're cleaning, you're cooking, doing dishes. Your body is there, but your mind is elsewhere, right? Your mind is off in fairy tale land of the past or hopscotching into the future, right? And so there's a disconnect. So we can't say that you're one with mind and body. But through mindfulness, right, being mindful of that, right, we can recognize that disconnect and bring them back together, right? Start to restore that wholesomeness or restore that mindfulness of body and mind together. And so during sitting meditation, the three elements of breath, body, and mind are calmed, right? And they gradually become one. So when peace is established in one of those three elements, the other two will soon have peace too, right? So for instance, the body is in a very stable, comfortable position, right? Your muscles are relaxed, the nervous system is relaxed, and everything feels good, right? You have no aches, no pains, no twitches or movements or anything like that. Then the mind and body are immediately influenced by that calmness of the body, right? And so they too, the mind and breath starts to become calm as well. Similarly, when we continue practicing the conscious breathing correctly, then our breathing becomes more regular, more calm, more harmonious with every moment. And this regularity, calmness, and harmony of the breathing will spread to our whole bodies and minds, and the body and mind will benefit from it as well. So it's only by these kinds of processes and awareness of the oneness of body and mind that can be achieved, is by the unification or bringing back the awareness of our breathing with the calmness of our mind and body. So the breathing here serves as a harmonizer. So we realize the peace and joy and ease of the first fruits of meditation practice. And at this point, in this exercise 3, is, if we recall last year when we went over the 5 jhana factors, right? The third factor is piti, or joy. By the third exercise, we start to achieve that third jhana factor of joy, piti, right? And this is a true type of joy, the joy that arises with no cause, right? Because if we think of joy in our everyday life, we're thinking joy, oh, I'm joyous when I see my family or friends or kids or whatever. I'm joyous to go to my favorite restaurants. Like, you feel joy in happy moments, right? But these moments are these moments of happiness or joy are caused by external factors that you come into sense perception with, right? But joy in meditation is true joy that comes spontaneously, not spontaneously, but arises with no originating factor, right? It's a joyous feeling in the body. Because now that the body and mind are one, right? There's comfort in the body. There's no aches, there's no pains. And you're able to spread that comfort of the body, or that relaxation of the body, to your breathing, right? Now the breathing starts to become more harmonious and more peaceful and calm. Then the mind will also settle in that peaceful and calmness state as well, right? So think of I'll save that example for the next exercise, which I guess I do have time to go through, but it's also the longest. So the fourth exercise of calming, just like the other exercises, this is also a continuation of the third exercise. And at this point, the breath is realized. This exercise, which is a continuation of the third, uses the breath to realize peace and calm in the whole body. So when our bodies are not calm or at peace, it's hard for the mind to be at peace as well. And so it's helpful that we should bring our breathing this is where it becomes helpful to start to calm our breathing in order for the body to calm down. Think of when you go for a run, right? Or when you're doing some labor, or you're moving around doing stuff, right? Your body and breathing starts to become flustered almost, right? We start gasping for air. We're trying to find breath, right? And so if you stop for a run, if you ran for a mile and you stop, what happens? What typically happens? Exactly, right? You fall over. You try to, you sit down or lean over or something just to try to slow down your breathing and calm the breath and calm the mind and body, right? So this is what happens. We know that if the body is not calm, the breath can't be calm. The mind can't calm down either. And so what happens when we stop that run, correct, if you're a true runner, you know at the end of the run, you start doing some deep breathing exercises to calm the breath, to calm the body. And so you usually take in deep breaths to kind of slow down that breathing in order for it to start to get more regular. And we can see that in meditation, for instance, that if you're meditating and a thought arises of anger, for instance, right? What happens to our bodies when we're angry? When you're really angry, what happens to the body? Right, your body, your heart starts to pump a little bit faster. Your body starts to just kind of tense up, right? Your breathing starts to be a little bit irregular because they're like, oh, I just can't stand this person. You're just breathing in and out heavily, like possessed or something, right? And so there's no calmness there. Now there's the connection between body, mind, and breath disconnects. And so the feeling of anger arising is probably one of the easier distractions or emotions and feelings to sense in meditation. Because if you're truly mindful, then you can be mindful of the breath starting to become a little bit more irregular, right? The breath is no longer calm like it used to. Now it's changing. And so that should give you the clarity of, oh, something is happening. My breath and body and mind are no longer in sync. They're no longer one. There's a disconnect somewhere. Where is that disconnect? And then you can kind of figure out that it's because of the feelings of anger that arose. And once you make that connection, once you make that realization and the awareness that anger is causing it, then you can go back to the breath and start to calm down that breath. And as the breath starts to calm, the body starts to calm, starts to become more relaxed, and the mind follows suit, right? So we can see that there's a total connection between all three, of body, mind, and breath. Body and breath kind of go together, right? Because you can't have a body without breathing, you can't breathe without a body, right? So they're kind of one and the same for the most part. But as soon as your body and mind are calm, then the meditation continues on to be peaceful. And so one of the first things we do at this exercise is to start to harmonize our breathing. So our in-breaths and out-breaths should flow smoothly and lightly when our breath is harmonious and our bodies are also harmonious. So the more subtle our breath is, the more peaceful our bodies and minds will be. So when we breathe in, we can feel the breath entering our bodies and calming all the cells of our bodies. When we breathe out, we feel the exhalation taking with it all of our tiredness, our anxieties, and our irritations that we're having. And so that when we are meditating, body, mind, and breath are all one. So we only need to calm the body in order to calm the mind. These are quotes from the sutra. And then when we smile, we demonstrate the peace and joy of body and mind. Feelings of peace and joy are nourishment for the practitioner and to help the practitioner go far onto the path of practice. When we become a little bit more aware of our breath, right, and we start to get it unified with body and mind, what is naturally going to happen is as the body becomes more calm and relaxed and at peace, right, the body is typically the first, I take that back. It's a 50-50 of what comes more calm first, either the breath or the body. For the most part, the body is typically the first thing that starts to kind of calm, right? And I say that because if you first sit down to meditate, right, you're adjusting your position, you're moving around, you're getting comfortable, right, you're stretching, you're getting your body prepped for this meditation. So you sit and you get in your position and you find a comfortable pose, and then you're calm. right? There's no discomfort, there's no pain. It just is. And so once the body is at peace and comfortable like that, then the breath follows suit. The breath is like, okay, the body is calm. Now it's my turn to start to calm. So as the breathing starts to calm and become more subtle and slows down, then that influences the mind as well. The mind starts to settle and slow down as well. And at one point, as you continue on this practice, you'll notice how subtly the breath starts to become, right? It becomes so subtle to a point where it may seem that you've even stopped breathing altogether, right? But it's not the case. The mind won't let you stop breathing, right? It's literally controlling the breath. But the mind knows that the body is in a safe zone, basically, right? It's comfortable, it's at peace, it's harmonious with the breath. And so as the breath starts to kind of recognize that same harmony with the body, the mind can tell, the mind can realize that, okay, the body and breath are in a zone of comfort. They're in a safe zone. They're in a safe place. They're in a good place, right? And so then the mind will naturally start to slow down and become more calm. And it's at this point, after exercise 4, going into exercise 5, this is where the sense organs, or organs that have sense perceptions, like eyes, ears, nose, and tongue, start to kind of fade away, right? Sometimes you'll hear me say that if you're in a deep meditation where the mind, the body, and breath are so at peace and calm that you lose sensations of your sense organs, right? You lose sensations of your body. You no longer feel the pressure of sitting. You no longer feel the pressure of your hands if your hands are in your palms as you meditate. Or if on your knee, the sensation of touching your knee disappears, right? So those senses start to disappear. The sense of touch is the first that kind of starts to subtly doze off. And then the other senses of hearing starts to slow down. Sense of smell kind of dozes off as well. You already lost your sense of sight because you closed your eyes, if you're closing your eyes. But those sensations start to kind of slowly disappear, and it puts you in a very relaxed, calm state, right? In a peaceful state, at a state that is at the pre-jhana level, right, of access concentration, right? This is access concentration. At exercise 5. No, actually it is at 4. So by exercise 4, if you've kind of went through it, right? So as long as you've succeeded at exercise 4, you've at this point achieved access concentration, right? This is the sweet spot of our meditation, right? It's no longer just regular meditation, but it's not advanced meditation like going to the jhanas. It's right there in the middle. It's exactly where we need to be. Because going any further usually doesn't do much to you, and it can actually be a little bit dangerous because met a lot of people that use the jhanas, right, these higher levels of consciousness and meditation. They use those methods to escape the world, right? Because you can sit in jhana for hours and hours and hours, right? Even days, if you're that gifted, without the need to eat or drink or do anything else, right? It's people use that as an escape from reality, right? Which is the exact opposite of what we need to do when we meditate, right? We're trying to break through the illusions and delusions of this false reality of our world, right? But if you're going in it to escape it, then as soon as you exit, it's still there, right? So it doesn't really do anything. It's just an escape plan, which doesn't bring any benefit to you. But that's if you use the jhanas in the wrong way, right? If you're using jhanas correctly for its purposes, right, then that's another thing. But truly, at this exercise, when we have achieved axis concentration, this is the perfect sweet spot, because this is a spot where the mind has calmed and slowed down to such a degree that any thoughts or distractions that arise are very wispy and in the background. Like they will not be strong enough to take over your object of meditation. Because at this point, your object of meditation, your awareness on your the oneness of mind and body, right, being calmed, that is enough power to push away any external factors of distraction, of thoughts or ideas to arise, right? They will still be there, and you'll have to make note of them when they do arise, but they will not be strong enough to take over, okay? If they do become strong enough to take over, then that's a note to yourself that I'm not in axis concentration, or my axis concentration is not strong enough. Because you can go in and out of axis concentration, right? That's a thing. It's not like you can go in it, and the moment you step out, you can't go back in. No, it's a process, right? It's a process of being able to get into that and holding it, maintaining that axis concentration for as long as possible. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it doesn't have the potential to escape, because it does, right? This is where the distractions do become powerful enough to distract you and take you away. But as long as you made that awareness, that recognition of that thought or distraction, then you can put yourself back into axis concentration, right? But that is as you develop that, because even axis concentration has levels of intensity. So the very beginning of the practice, when you start to achieve axis concentration, again, you'll have distractions, right? And they may take you away from your object of meditation a couple of times, but it won't be to such a degree that one distraction takes you away for the entire duration of your meditation. That will not happen in axis concentration. If it does, then you're not in axis concentration. So as long as if you feel like you're in axis concentration, you're able to recognize distractions or ideas or thoughts that arise and catch them, right, as soon as possible, then they disappear and you're still in axis concentration. But if there's a chance where one is big enough to do take over your object of meditation, right, and kick you out of axis, then you can simply kick it back out, right? So, but that's at the very beginning, right? And then as you continue on further with the practice, those distractions now are no longer strong enough to take over anymore, right? They're there, they're wispy, and they're in the background, they're creeping up. As long as you notice them creeping up, then you can catch it and scare it off, right? And then as you go in more intense and more deeper and deeper into the practice, then you can get to a point where there's no longer even wispy distractions arising, right? And you're able to maintain your object of meditation for the full duration of your session, right? And so there's levels, right? And then there's no reason there's really no true reason that we need to go beyond axis concentration into the jhanas, right? There's no true reason to, because even if you do achieve jhana, you don't really get anything out of it, right? These jhana factors are simply just states of mind, states of consciousness where it's just a complete disconnect from reality, right? Nothing can be realized. You cannot attain enlightenment through the jhanas. You cannot have any teachings or discourses realized. There's no attainment in jhana. Jhana is simply a way to master and perfect your concentration. That's it. However, through Satipatthana, the four foundations, this is where attainments can be realized. This is where aha moments will become realized, because Satipatthana is technically vipassana meditation, right? Contemplation meditation, or insight meditation, right? As the word says, insight or contemplation, that means that you're doing something, right? You're contemplating a teaching, you're contemplating a topic of study, and you're analyzing, you're dissecting it, you're going through it, and now you have insights because of that contemplation, right? That's where the true gold is in our practice. I don't know how I even got on the topic of jhana. But, it's because we get to access concentration at exercise 4. So this is what I mean, where it has to be a gradual process. And you see how they all connect together, right? It starts off with just the simple realization of the breath, in and out breath, and then it transfers over to the mindfulness of breathing into the body, exiting the body. Then we transfer to the mindfulness of connecting or unifying, harmonizing the body, mind, and breath. And then we go into complete calmness, or the calming. And at this point, this is where you may achieve that extreme subtlety of breathing. You may achieve the absence of your senses, mostly in the body. But this is where you would see the fruits of your practice. This is where you see all the fruits bearing from the seeds that you've sown into your mind, into your field, mindful field. No, wait, what's the word? I'm just going to call the field of mindfulness there. You've sown seeds in your field of mindfulness, and now it's growing and it's bearing fruit. Okay, I'm going to stop there so we give us time to meditate. And that's just the first 4 exercises out of 20. So we got a long ways to go. Any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts? The exercises in mindfulness of body, well, even if you look at all the 4 foundations of mindfulness, right? Even the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you can tell works in a sequential order as well, right? Because think of you walking in and sitting down to meditate, right? Think of the process of you walking in and sitting down to meditate, right? When you first do that and you sit, what are we doing? You're getting comfortable. Right, you're getting your body prepped for sitting. You're adjusting your posture. You're getting things in a comfortable position to sit, right? And so that's getting the body prepped. Then what? Then what do you do next? Close your eyes, okay? That's part of the body. Start breathing, right? You start to be aware. Well, before you be aware of your breath, the second mindfulness factor, mindfulness of feelings, right? When you sit, right, you're doing multiple things about feelings. It's both trying to get the feeling of the body comfortable in the position, and it's trying to get the mind or some of the negative feelings or unwholesome feelings assuaged in the mind, right? Even sometimes prepping. No, that's what I'm looking for. It starts with a P. I'm going to use hyping. So you start to hype yourself up, right? To be like, okay, I'm here to sit and meditate, right? I want to sit for 30 minutes. I want to sit for 45 minutes. I want to sit for an hour, right? You become enthused by that, about what you're going to do, right? So that's kind of getting the feelings ready. But on the other hand, what you can also do is sit down like, oh, sit here for 30 minutes, sit here for 45 minutes, sit here for an hour, right? And so you have to really start to watch those feelings and to get those feelings in check. Once your mind and once your body and the feelings and sensations are checked, then we go to the mind, right? This is where I was like, I'm sorry, let me back up a bit. With body and feelings, this is also where we start to regulate our breathing, right? Because when you first start to sit, especially if you've walked a distance, right? When you first start to sit, your breath still may be irregular because you've been doing some activity, right? And so anything that we do, whether it's even just walking, even talking, right? Your breath is irregular. It's not in harmony. And so once we sit and we check our body, check the feelings, how we're feeling, now it's time to check the breathing. We start to take a few deep breaths, right? To start to try to get the breath regulated. And as the breath becomes more regular, then it starts to become more calm, more subtle, right? It starts to become a little bit more shallow and smooth, right? This kind of, we can, at this point, this is where we can start to use we can use the first 4 exercises of the mindfulness of breathing, right? Knowing that you're breathing in, breathing out, knowing that you're breathing in or breathing out a short breath or a long breath, knowing that you're breathing in or out a breath that is smooth or coarse, is it heavy, is it long, right? You start to really evaluate the type of breathing that's happening. Because if you can recognize the type of breathing that's happening as you first sit, then it's easier to recognize what needs to be done, essentially, right? Because if you can recognize your breathing is very irregular or not harmonized, then we can start to take deeper breaths or more regulated breaths in order to start to calm that down. Then as the mind and body starts to calm, then we go into the 4th factor, right? Mindfulness of mental objects. This is pretty much everything else, right? Everything that arises in the mind afterward. This is where our distractions happen. This is where we have to become more aware of the types of feelings that are arising in the mind or the mental objects that are arising in the mind. And so the mental objects exercise, this is where it has the 5 exercises. So we can see that body and mental objects are pretty important because they have the most exercises. Mindfulness of body has 10, and mindfulness of objects of mind or the mental objects have 5, and then 2 and 3 respectively for the feelings and the mind. So we can see even just by the 4 factors of alignment, the 4 foundations of the mindfulness in itself is in sequential order, right? And then the exercises that are within them are also done in sequential order. And so we can see that this entire Satipatthana is a process, right? To have the expectation of going into meditation and feeling, oh, it's going to be a good meditation. I'm going to do excellent, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but then if you hype yourself up in that way, and it doesn't happen, then you're going to exit your meditation feeling crappy about yourself. Like, oh, I didn't succeed. I didn't do what I wanted to do. This happened, that happened, right? So it's it's unbeneficial. But it is important to sit down and have an intention of the type of meditation you want to do, right? Meaning that you can't just sit for meditation and just hope for the best, right? Let whatever comes to you arise, right? There's no, what's the point there? So we have to go into meditation knowing that what we want to do. What do you want to do in this meditation? Do you want to focus on the objects of body? Do you want to focus on how the mind is working? Do you want to focus on the feelings and the emotions that arise? Do we want to focus on the perceptions that occur during our meditation, right, in the mind. So we really have to have a point of what we're wanting to do. So for me, at least, depending on the length of my meditation session, usually the thing I say to myself is, I just repeat axis concentration a couple times. Axis concentration, axis concentration, axis concentration. That way my mind already has that stamped, and it knows that at the axis concentration point, that's where I want to be. That's my stopping point. Otherwise, if I'm sitting for longer sessions, anything at least 90 minutes or more, then I want to go a little bit beyond, right? Axis concentration. But that way, if you make that intention, it's easier to know what needs to be done, right? It's easier to know which exercises to follow through, because if you don't want to get to the calming point because you don't have time or you're not able to get to that point yet, then you know at least you're going to go through 1, 2, and 3, or just 1 and 2, or just 1, right? But have that intention. Know what you want to do before you sit for meditation. That way it preps yourself, preps the mind to complete what you have the intention for. Okay, I'm actually going to stop talking now. Any last minute questions before we do our sit? I believe this will at least give us 30 minutes to sit today. I won't do walking meditation today. I will do walking meditation for the next class because exercise 5 goes through mindfulness of walking. So I'm going to wait to that. That we have more information on mindfulness of walking before we actually do it. Okay, questions? No? We're good? Okay, so do a quick stretch if you need to. Welcome back. You travel far in a distant land of distractions and thoughts. Is your meditation harmonious? Any challenges arose while going through and I know I didn't explicitly say to go through the exercises, but I hope that was implied. And when you sit down for meditation, to go through the exercises. So if you did, how was that? Any challenges? What arose? Didn't arise? So thoughts would be considered like the objects of mind, right? So mind is, think of the mind as clarity. The objects of mind is the opposite of clarity. Like basically, the mind is the bucket. And the objects of minds are everything that you would put into the bucket. So distractions, emotions, feelings, memories, experiences, all that falls into the bucket. So that bucket can be empty or it can be full, right? And so, but it depends on what you put in there. And so as we go through the following foundations, you'll see that once we get to the objects of mind, that when you start the meditation, your mind bucket is empty, and you have all these objects of all these perceptions and ideas and distractions and whatnot, objects of mind. Once we get practiced enough, right? Because right now, these objects of mind go into the bucket without even us being aware or noticing it for the most part, right? But once we get practiced enough and we get to that level, you would be able to see as the objects of mind arise en route to the bucket, you can find it, you can catch it while it's en route before it goes into the bucket, right? This is what I mean when I said earlier is when distractions arise, if we're in access concentration, distraction arises and takes you out of access concentration is because there's stuff in your bucket. But as you get more practice and more meditative, then those distractions you'll be able to notice those distractions as they arise and catch them before they go into the bucket. So these are kind of the wispy things I was mentioning that's in the background. So all these wispy, very short, very temporary thoughts and emotions and distractions arise, don't go into the bucket because you're able to catch them before they're en route to it. Mm-hmm. So my thought and mind are pretty much the same, right? Feelings here are the physical feelings that we feel in the body in meditation. So the comfort, the discomfort, the pain, the joy, anything that's of the body falls under the category of either the foundation of body or feelings. The thoughts and mind go hand in hand, right? They're the same. Objects of mind is, backtrack. Let's say you're peaceful, your mind's empty, right? But then a thought of food arises. That's a thought. What makes it a mental object is the detail of that thought of food. What do I want to eat? Do I make it? Do I cook it? Do I pick it up? Do I have the ingredients? Right? So it's the elaboration of the thought that becomes the object of mind, or the perception, right? Because that is what a perception is. A perception is the story we give to an object, right? And so a thought arises, that's fine. You catch it, it doesn't escalate to anything else. But if you don't catch it, then it becomes this huge thing and becomes an object of mind, a perception. But the thought itself, so what you're, well, then what you're doing is you're using the distraction as a distraction from the distraction. Is what's happening. Yes. Pretty much. Pretty much. Or start over where you left off, basically, right? Okay. Which is fine. Which is fine. Yeah. But I wouldn't use a distraction as a distraction for the distraction, right? Simply just label it. So whatever the thought is, just give it the label. Because simply giving it the label will allow it to dissipate. But if you're repeating that thought, then the mind's going to think, oh, maybe we want to think about this thought. Don't encourage it. You don't want to encourage these thoughts. You're trying to gain some control, right? Good insight. No. No. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes, always revert back to your object of meditation if you find yourself distracted. In this case, it's always going to be the breath for the most part, at least for these few exercises, or whatever your object of meditation is. That is what you go back to. So whether you're focusing on the breath, whether you're contemplating on a specific topic, whether you're scanning the body, whether you're focusing on that area of joy in the body when that natural feeling of joy arises, right? And we give it attention, some attention. But if anything, within those instances that a thought arises or a distraction happens, just go back to the breath. Yeah, just go back. Go back home. Quang tree, go home. Mm-hmm. Okay. What else? The other kind of benefit of the Satipatthana and going through all the foundations and the exercises is it also allows us to get to know ourselves a little bit more, right? Even though we are conscious of ourselves to a degree, we're not always conscious of what happens within ourselves, right? And so if you think about an argument or a heated incident or whatever it may be, right? Take your mind back to a difficult situation, whether it's an argument or whether it's a debate or something, right? Go back to that memory, right? Can you remember every single emotion, thought, feeling, sensation that arose in that moment? Can you remember every single one that arose? Besides the major one, well, that's probably anger or frustration, but the subtleties that go on. Do you remember how your mind was working? Do you remember what the thought process was? Do you remember trying to find a solution for an argument? Or are you trying to find a solution for it? Are you trying to make a solution with an argument, or are you trying to find a solution for the argument, right? So like, think of the pattern, think of the thinking mind in those situations. We can't remember those situations, right? We can't remember all those little subtleties that happen because we're unaware. We don't know what's happening in the mind. We tend to let it just go on autopilot and do its thing, right? So there's not really room to learn much about ourselves, because that's also one of the points of meditation, is to learn about ourselves, learning how our mind works, learning how our thought patterns work and our habit patterns work, how our decision-making happens, our responses and our reactions, right? We need to get to know these things, because that way it'll give you a more sense of control when you're back in those types of situations that require true mindfulness or awareness of what's happening in the mind as it's happening. As I've mentioned a bazillion times probably at this point, that everything starts as a thought, right? Whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, it starts as a thought. It's at that point where you can either, if it's a positive thought, you can either grow it in intensity, right? Make it more positive, thinking of how you can make it better. Or it's just a neutral thought, it's arose, there's no this or that to it. Or there could be a negative thought, right? Which is usually like what you want to reply in retaliation. How do you want to retaliate back? Do you want to slash their tires? Do you just want to yell at them? Do you want to egg their house? Right? All these negativities happen in the mind. And so it's at that point, it's at that moment where you should have some self-control over the mind and stop those thoughts in its tracks. Because if you don't stop those types of negative thinking, what happens after thinking? Well, what's speech, right? Right? So if you don't stop that negative thinking, then the mouth is habitually going to open up and say stupid stuff, right? Because you're unmindful of the thoughts. Because you have to think of when you're thinking, right? Think of when you're about to respond. Do you actually know that the mind is ticking and working its gears for that response? No, we typically just blurt it out, right? You speak without thinking. I'm speaking right now without really thinking, right? And that can cause a lot of problems, right? You may say something wrong. You may say something hurtful or unwholesome, or ignorant, or unbeneficial, or unhelpful, et cetera, right? And so if you're able to catch those thoughts, even though they happen in fractions and fractions of seconds, right? But there's still time, right? Even though it's a very, 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 very short time, there's still time for you to intervene those negative thoughts. If you're able to intervene those negative thoughts and stop them while they're working, then you can stop yourself from saying negative things, right? So you have a checkpoint at the mind, right? Between the mind and the mouth, there's a checkpoint there. And you can halt the thinking and the thoughts and the ideas and evaluate what they are. Are they helpful or are they unhelpful, right? And then from then on, whether it's helpful, great, say it. If it's not helpful, great, you've caught it, don't say it. But let's say you didn't catch at that checkpoint, and now you've blurted out this negative thing, this hurtful thing, right? It's said out loud, there's no taking it back. But even at that point, what can happen in an argument after you've said something negative? Let's say you're having a fight. It's one thing I'm doing, but I'm about to say the answer. What's the action that we typically do? Action, right? So if you're in an argument with somebody, if you're fighting with significant other or friends or family, whatever, there's a potential that it can become physical, right? And so let's say you've said something that insulted someone. I don't believe in insults, but let's say someone is not wise enough to be unoffendable. Let's say they took offense. They're like, oh, how dare you say this? And they're trying to strike you, right? But even at that point, even after you said something negative, if you're still unmindful, and the part between speech and action, there's another checkpoint right there. So as the negativity is traveling to start that punch or whatever negative activity you're about to do, you can stop yourself at that point. Is what I want to do helpful or unhelpful? Right? So if you are able to catch it, like, oh, this is unhelpful, back to the line. You're not able to cross my border into action. But as if the action is helpful, right? Like apologizing or trying to do something to assuage the situation, maybe a hug, right? Maybe buying coffee or something, I don't know. But there's things you can do to help, right? So think of that process. So as we meditate and we go through the exercises, this is forcing us to really analyze our thinking habits, right? To really analyze the habits of our reactions and emotions and feelings that arise during specific situations. And so as we practice them on the cushion and become hyper aware of those types of thoughts and feelings and emotions, etc., then we can take that activity and that practice off the cushion. That way, when we are in a real life situation of an argument or whatever it may be, we can recollect or go back to our practice and use the same methods that we do on the cushion, off the cushion in that situation, right? But this is at least allowing us to truly dig deep and dive deep into our mind and to really nitpick every thought and emotion that arises and analyze it, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral. At that point, now you have something to work with. But of course, that takes practice on the cushion in order for you to be able to use it off the cushion, right? Because you're not practiced enough while you're on the cushion, right? You're in a very conducive environment to practice, to really sit quietly and to really analyze yourself, right, on the cushion, because it's a conducive environment. A heated argument is not necessarily a conducive argument, right? And so it's important for us to truly practice well enough on the cushion so that we can actually utilize that practice off the cushion, right? And that's the whole objective of meditation. It's not about gaining anything on the cushion, right? Because it can happen, but most likely it doesn't happen for most people. And so at least then we can take what we've known in our practice of meditating and using it in our everyday lives. That way it does become relatable and reliable and useful in your life, regular life. I hope that makes sense. That was a lot of words. Okay. Any last minute questions, concerns? The elaboration of thoughts or objects of mind. So a thought of food, it's just if food arises in the mind, that's just a thought. But then if you start to dig deeper, the type of food, the kind of food, do you want food, do you not want food, do you want to buy it, do you want to cook it? All that elaboration of the thought of food is the objects of mind. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then I will see everyone either tomorrow or for our next class in a couple of weeks. I'll go over the next 3 or 4 exercises so we can finish up the 10 that's in the body. and move on. So this class is going to extend way longer than my usual 3 months, which is fine. I don't mind. And I'm going through all the exercises this time around because I want to emphasize the importance of them and emphasize just how important it is to go through these practices and these exercises and these meditations to achieve our spiritual aspirations and goals. I don't want to kind of, because when I covered the Anapanasati Sutra, mindfulness of breathing, I only covered the first 4 or 6 exercises out of the 16. And so I cut that short because the first 4 to 6 are pretty much the basis of meditation anyway, and everything else is just kind of extra fluff. Not to say that they're not important, they are important, but I didn't go through all 16 exercises because it's the remaining 10 of the 16 are natural states of mind that occur within deeper meditation practice anyway, right? Those the results of the remaining 10 from the 16 Anapanasati exercises end up kind of merging with the exercises in the Satipatthana anyway. So I didn't emphasize too much on the exercises from the Anapanasati, but I will for the Satipatthana because at least in Satipatthana, we have the opportunity to gain insight, whereas in Anapanasati we do not. Anapanasati is strictly to perfect or near perfect our concentration, whereas Satipatthana is more so trying to perfect your contemplation and gain insight. So to me, as much as I practice Anapanasati, right, on a daily basis, it is a very important practice, but this is a slightly more important practice because this is where insight actually happens. This is where insight actually occurs and realizations occur. So to me, I think that's a bigger deal. Maybe one day I'll go back and go through every single 16 Anapanasati, but truly the first 4 to 6 is the most important anyway. Okay, I will end the class. Please join me in transferring the merit. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.